My name was Ali. I was a judge in an Islamic court, a position of respect and authority in Doha, Qatar. I wore the robes of tradition, upheld the laws of my faith, and participated in a world where questioning was buried under layers of fear and silence. But beneath the surface of that esteemed exterior lay a profound emptiness I couldn't shake. I adhered to my faith with fervor, yet felt an undeniable void, a spiritual desert that left me gasping for something more. There were nights when I awoke in a cold sweat, dreams of light and barren sand swirling in my mind. In those moments, I was haunted by an unseen presence, whispering doubts about the very beliefs I had held dear. What was the purpose of my devotion? Who was I meant to serve? I didn't have the answers, but I felt the weight of these questions pressing down like a stone. It was a hollow existence, one where my heart silently cried out for truth amid shadows of insecurity. Then, everything changed in an instant. A car crash stole my breath and plunged me into darkness. It was there, in the abyss, that I was summoned into a courtroom, not the one I had presided over, but a heavenly tribunal of sorts, flooded with an overwhelming light. And then, he appeared. Jesus. He called my name, shattering the illusions I had been fed. He revealed the hidden truths that had eluded me, how the structures of faith were often more about control than divine connection. It was a sobering awakening. Upon returning to this life, I was followed by a storm, my family's scorn, colleagues, whispers of heresy, and the chains of guilt that wrapped tightly around my heart. Shunned for my newfound perspective, I grappled with a dangerous paradox, clinging to the life I once knew while feeling the pull of a radical truth that demanded action, a truth that promised liberation. Compelled by love and fear, I sought answers in sacred texts I had been taught to shun. I knew that the things I had seen, the truths imparted to me by Jesus, had changed me irrevocably. I had been given insight into the spiritual war that encompassed our lives, but the very path I walked now felt laden with pitfalls, especially concerning how I would be received by my family and community. My re-entry into my life became a painful confrontation. As a respected judge and practicing Muslim, I had always worn the armor of tradition, but now it felt like a burial shroud. I found myself torn between the person I had been and the one I was supposed to become. When my family learned of my awakening, their initial shock was replaced by disbelief and fear. They labeled me a heretic, casting me out from the very bonds that had once defined my existence. The isolation clawed at my heart, a relentless reminder of what I stood to lose, vectors of connection that had once grounded me in my faith. Guilt enveloped me like a shadow. As I distanced myself from everything I once knew, I wrestled with the idea that perhaps my awakening was a betrayal. I questioned whether the truths I had encountered were worth this profound separation from loved ones. Doubts crept into my mind, causing me to second-guess the revelations of Jesus. It was as if I was straddling two worlds that pulled relentlessly at my soul. One held the comfort of familiar customs and expectations, while the other demanded clarity, honesty, and the courage to speak the unfiltered truth. During this turbulent time, my dreams became increasingly vivid. The desert scenes I once dismissed now took on deeper meaning, revealing the path of awakening that lay before me. I would dream of Jesus, appearing in the soft glow of dawn, illuminating the darkness all around. Each time he came to me, I felt compelled to embrace the mission laid out before me. It was not merely about finding my voice, but about standing firmly against the hidden agendas that fueled division and deception in our society. The realization struck me. My struggle was not just an individual endeavor, but part of a larger battle against those who would keep us in the dark, led by the elite who thrived on our ignorance. I began to connect with a small group of like-minded individuals who, like me, had experienced their own awakenings. Sharing our stories, we uncovered the layers of truth that had been obscured by fear and deception. Together, we dissected the narratives that shaped our existence, challenging the society that sought to keep us divided. As I forged these new connections, I felt renewed strength rising within me. The urgency of our mission became clear. Awakening ourselves was just the first step. We were called to share this truth, to encourage others to step into the light of understanding and love, no matter how daunting the journey might seem. The battle we faced was monumental, yet, emboldened by what we had witnessed, we were ready to rise and fight for the awakening of all. Secretly, I found myself embarking on a quest for truth that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The overwhelming experience of my near-death encounter with Jesus echoed in my mind, prompting me to explore the depths of my faith in ways I had never dared to before. I started delving into the Bible, reading passages that quickly transformed from mere text into vivid revelations. Each scripture I uncovered seemed infused with new meaning, illuminating my understanding in ways I hadn't thought possible. The teachings of Jesus became a refuge for my restless spirit, guiding me toward a greater understanding of love, acceptance, and the spiritual war that had long been hidden from my view. In my search for answers, I stumbled upon testimonies from former Muslims who had converted to Christianity, individuals whose stories resonated deeply with my own struggles. Their narratives echoed my sentiments, the fears of rejection, the guilt of abandoning one's family, and the profound sense of awakening that swelled within their hearts. It struck me how many others had felt the weight of deception, the veils of hidden agendas stifling their connections to the divine. As I listened to their experiences, I began to grasp the fact that I wasn't alone in this journey. Each story shared was a thread pulling me closer to the truth, the recognition that our faith should not be a prison, but rather a pathway to freedom and authenticity. As I delved deeper, I faced the reality of the growing rift between my awakening and my familial identity. The fear of losing my loved ones loomed large, casting a shadow over my newfound hope. I began to grapple with the question of whether I could ever truly reconcile my beliefs with the expectations of my family and community. In the quiet moments, when I reflected on my journey, doubt crept in. Would they understand the revelations I had received? Would they be willing to confront the truth that had opened my heart? The potential loneliness of distancing myself from them felt daunting, yet the desire to embrace the truth felt even stronger. In the midst of this internal turmoil, I discovered a small support group filled with individuals who had faced similar crossroads. These gatherings became a source of strength, a sanctuary where I could express my fears and hopes without judgment. I found solace in their understanding, which seemed to wrap around me like a warm embrace. Together, we shared insights and supported one another, forging connections rooted in the shared experience of awakening. Each meeting was an opportunity to discuss the deceptions that had held us captive, from societal pressures to the narratives constructed by the elite, seeking to maintain control over our beliefs and lives. With every passing day, I felt the urgency of my mission intensify. I recognized that speaking the truth was essential, not only for my liberation, but for others still ensnared in the web of deception. The spiritual war one now understood was not just a personal battle. It was a collective struggle for liberation and enlightenment, inviting those around me to awaken from their slumber. The moment I had been waiting for was approaching. The moment I felt I must share my journey, my awakening, and the love I encountered through Jesus, regardless of the consequences that may follow. The path ahead loomed immense, but I was ready to step into it, armed with the truth and the courage I had found along the way. As I stood in the courtroom, the familiar smells of paper and ink, mixed with the tension in the air, felt different. That day marked a profound shift in my life. I had recently experienced what I can only describe as a divine revelation, one that opened my eyes to the spiritual war raging around us. It was almost surreal, as if I were a spectator in a grand play, witnessing the struggle between light and darkness unfold before me. When the accident happened, I was thrown into a near-death experience where I found myself face to face with Jesus. He conveyed insights that penetrated deep into my heart, shattering the illusions that had long clouded my understanding of faith and truth. During that encounter, Jesus shared the truly hidden agendas at play in our world. How the elite manipulate society to create division and perpetuate suffering. He revealed the deception woven into our beliefs and traditions, urging me to recognize the systems that had held me captive for so long. I understood then that my life had been a series of barriers, each one designed to keep me from the authentic relationship with Him and the divine truth that awaited me. With every revelation, something inside me ignited. I felt not just enlightened, but empowered to confront the oppressive structures that often masquerade as pillars of wisdom and faith. Through this awakening, the urgency of my mission became palpable. I found myself compelled to share the truth I had uncovered, knowing that silence would only allow the deception to flourish unchecked. I could no longer stand idly by in a system that extolled obedience while ignoring the deeper lessons Jesus had imparted to me. The fear of retribution from my family and community lingered in the background, but I grasped the importance of rising above those fears. I could no longer allow my voice to be stifled by the demands of conformity and the expectations of others. The realization was overwhelming. My experience was not just for my own enlightenment, but a clarion call to reach out to those still trapped in the shadows of misunderstanding. I envisioned sharing my journey, not only in the courtroom but beyond, so that others might break free from the fear that binds them to outdated narratives. Each day after my awakening, I felt an unwavering drive to connect with individuals who are also searching for truth. The knowledge that we were all part of this grand spiritual war fueled my pursuit, a mission to awaken as many souls as possible. In the following weeks, I began to strategize my approach. I sought out opportunities to engage my community in conversations about the truths we often shy away from. I envisioned gatherings where honesty would reign, where questions could be asked without fear of condemnation. Each encounter left me with the burning desire to share my experiences, the love and wisdom Jesus showed me, and the truths buried beneath the lies perpetuated by the elite. There was a sense of urgency coursing through me, urging me to embrace my role as a messenger of truth, one ready to confront any opposition in the name of awakening. The path was daunting, but I knew it would lead to a greater freedom, both for myself and for those willing to join me on this journey. In the quiet hours of the night, I made the monumental decision to shed my old identity. I was Ali, the judge the community respected, but I felt like a phantom, haunting the shadows of my own life. Leaving my home felt like stepping into a vast chasm, a desert of uncertainty, where I would no longer be confined by the expectations of my family or the traditions that had long bound me. I took a new name, one that signified my rebirth, a symbolic gesture to mark the beginning of a quest for truth and purpose. Embracing this change wasn't just about finding myself. It was about igniting the spark of awakening that had flickered within me since my encounter with Jesus. As I ventured into the desolate wilderness, I felt an exhilarating mix of fear and hope. The desert stretched endlessly, a canvas of solitude in which I could explore my deepest thoughts and confront the demons that had haunted me. Every step I took was laden with the knowledge that I had left behind a life of comfort wrapped in deception. As I journeyed deeper, memories of the spiritual war one had faced returned in waves, reminding me of the struggles I had endured. The revelation from Jesus burned brightly in my heart, compelling me to share this transformation with others who were still lost in the shadows. In the days that followed, my mission began to take shape. I came across individuals stumbling through their own spiritual wars, burdened by doubt and confusion. I listened as they shared their stories, feeling their pain resonate with my own. In these encounters, I realized that the hidden agenda meant to keep us divided had worked effectively to instill fear, driving a wedge between those searching for something deeper. I seized these opportunities to offer words of encouragement and support, reminding them of the truth I had uncovered through my awakening. As I spoke of the love and clarity that Jesus had shown me, I witnessed a flicker of hope ignite in their eyes. With each interaction, my purpose solidified further. I began to understand that my journey was not just a personal one, it was meant to be a collective awakening. I envisioned gatherings where we could strip away the layers of deception and support one another in confronting the elite's manipulative narratives. The urgency to foster change grew within me, spurred by the realization that many still lived under the oppressive weight of fear. My heart swelled with compassion for those who felt they had no voice. I channeled the energy from my past experiences into a commitment to help them reclaim their narratives, encouraging them to rise above the chains that had kept them captive. Yet, even as I looked forward with hope, I felt the pain of separation from my family hanging over me like a storm cloud. I grappled with the fear that my awakening might lead to a permanent estrangement from those I loved most. The thought of being labeled a traitor weighed heavily on my heart, but the truth that had been revealed to me was too powerful to ignore. I often found myself praying, asking for the strength to bridge the gap between my newfound beliefs and the familial ties I feared losing. There was a quiet resolve rising within me, a knowing that I was called to confront this fear and to nurture hope for reconciliation with my loved ones, even if the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. As my journey continues, I feel the urgency pulsating within me, a calling to share these truths that heaven unveiled. You see, the awakening I've experienced is not just for my liberation, it's for all of us caught in the shadows of deception. There is a spiritual war playing out on the global stage, and whether we realize it or not, each of us is a player in this grand narrative. Are you too feeling the pull of something greater? Is your heart stirring with a recognition of the truths that have long remained hidden? This is your moment to join the conversation. The stories we tell, the truths we uncover together, they have the power to transform lives. I want to hear from you. Have you had a glimpse of this deeper reality? A moment of clarity that shifted your understanding of life and faith? Share your experience in the comments. Your voice matters. You are not alone in this challenge, and together we can foster an awakening that echoes far beyond our individual lives. If what we've uncovered resonates with you, please subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell. Each insight shared on this channel could ignite a spark in someone else, leading them toward their own awakening. It's not just about me, it's about all of us beginning to see the light together. And don't forget to check out the next video, where we'll dive even deeper into another incredible testimony. This journey we are on is just beginning, a collective quest for truth that transcends every border we've built. I'm Ali, and I'm grateful you chose to share this moment with me. Remember, the truth is a beacon, guiding us all toward the freedom we seek. Take that step. Together, let's walk toward the light. In the quiet corners of my existence, I found a community of seekers, brave souls driven by similar encounters with the divine. Yet, with every step toward the light, I feared the inevitable, losing my identity within my family and the traditions that shaped me. But the call to truth was urgent. I was being commissioned, urged to break my silence, to share the revelations that could set others free. The path ahead was daunting. It would lead me into the wilderness of my own making, but it was a journey toward becoming who I was truly meant to be. As I embark on this new chapter, I invite you to walk with me. Before we go deeper, share where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I long to connect with you across the distances. And if you feel that same stirring within you, that call to explore the truth, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Together, we will unveil the revelations waiting on the horizon. What begins now is more than a story. It is a quest for the divine, a journey to discover the freedom that lies beyond the shadows. As I sat in the Islamic courtroom in Doha, the atmosphere weighed heavy with tradition and authority, creating a palpable tension that hung in the air. I was a judge, respected among my peers, yet I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled within me over the years. This space, filled with reverence for our faith, had often felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. The fear of questioning the very foundations of my life kept me silent, an obedient servant to a system that seemed to thrive on conformity and suppress the truth. Every case I presided over left me with lingering doubts about justice and morality, echoing the internal spiritual war that waged inside my heart. One specific case ignited a spark that I could no longer ignore. The defendant stood accused of blasphemy, and my gut twisted in discomfort as the prosecution painted a picture filled with fear-driven narratives. I found myself torn, caught between the weight of tradition and the truth stirring within me. It was during the deliberations that I again felt the presence of something greater, something I had felt only fleetingly in my more introspective moments. As I stepped aside to reflect, I was thrust into a surreal and vivid near-death experience that altered everything. In that moment, I encountered Jesus in a luminous vision. His presence radiated warmth and compassion, washing away the doubt suffocating me. "You have been chosen to witness the truth," he said, and with those words, a flood of revelations cascaded down around me. I witnessed our world not as the serene place I had always perceived, but as a battleground, one fraught with deception and hidden agendas orchestrated by the elite. The narratives we clung to, often cloaked in the guise of righteousness, were revealed to be manipulations designed to keep the masses in fear and division. The truth was being silenced, buried under layers of dogma and tradition, but I felt an urgent call to peel those layers back. As Jesus shared the veils of deception, I understood how the spiritual war wasn't just a personal dilemma. It was a reflection of a society yearning for liberation. I saw vividly the ramifications of blind obedience, the rift it had created among people who had become pawns in a far greater game. The wars, the divisions, the suffering we witnessed daily, it all stemmed from a refusal to acknowledge our shared humanity. The guilt I had felt for questioning melted away as I recognized the importance of embracing not just my faith, but also the call to stand against the structures designed to oppress. When I came back to consciousness, the courtroom around me felt suffocatingly familiar yet entirely transformed. I sat there, grappling with the weight of what had just unfolded. The traditional beliefs that had shaped my life were now intertwined with a sense of urgency that demanded action. I felt compelled to speak, to confront the system that I had always held in high regard, but fear clawed at my insides. What would my colleagues think? What about my family's reputation? In that moment of internal conflict, I realized that silence would no longer be an option. I had been entrusted with a precious truth, and to remain silent would be a betrayal of not just my awakening but of those still lost in the shadows of deception. As I rose to pronounce the verdict, the words felt heavy on my tongue. I sensed the gazes of my peers locked on me, but within I felt fortified by the knowledge that the revelation I had experienced was about to ignite a shift. I took a deep breath, preparing to shatter the silence that had long enveloped this place of authority. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, one that could potentially unravel the hidden agendas that had dictated our beliefs for far too long. The journey to awaken not only myself but those around me was about to unfold, and I felt empowered to step into that light, no matter the consequence. I'm Ali, a 35-year-old public defender, respected in my field and regarded as a pillar of my community. But beneath this polished exterior lies a profound emptiness I struggle to articulate, a gnawing discontent that eats away at my spirit. On the surface, I embody the virtues of my faith, adhering strictly to my responsibilities as both a lawyer and a devout Muslim. Yet, inside my home, silence reigns, wrapping my family in an unspoken emotional repression. We go through the motions of life, maintaining appearances, but the weight of unaddressed feelings looms large, suffocating our connections and stifling our true selves. Each day I prepare to step into the courtroom, where I defend those caught in the throes of the legal system. While I advocate for justice, a swelling sense of futility presses upon me. I give voice to the voiceless, yet I can't shake the feeling that many who come seeking justice are also ensnared in a larger web of deception. As I delve into their cases, I recognize the systemic injustices perpetuated by those in power, the elite who manipulate the laws to serve their own interests, often at the expense of the vulnerable. The truths I uncover leave me feeling somewhat defeated. It's as if I'm battling an invisible foe, a spiritual war against forces I can hardly name. Then came that fateful day when everything changed. After a particularly exhausting case, I stumbled home exhausted and emotionally drained. As I drifted off to sleep, I was thrust into a near-death experience that altered my understanding of reality forever. I found myself in a swirling vortex of light and energy, a space devoid of time and fear. It was there that I encountered Jesus, radiant and full of love, his presence enveloping me like a warm embrace. He called my name with a commanding yet gentle voice. "Ali," he said. And in that instance, I felt the shackles of my past dissolve under the weight of his truth. While speaking with Jesus, I was flooded with revelations that illuminated the path ahead. He unveiled the hidden agendas that lay beneath the surface of our society, exposing the manipulation and deception at play in the world. I saw how the elite had orchestrated a systemic narrative designed to deceive, perpetuating fear and division among us. The wars being fought were not merely in foreign lands, but within our cities, our homes, and even our hearts. The truths I previously overlooked became glaringly clear. How countless lives were impacted not just by the literal wars, but by the ideological battles that divided us, pitting belief systems against each other at the altar of control. As I returned to consciousness, the weight of his revelations hung heavily around my shoulders. I understood that my life could no longer be merely about the pursuit of professional success or fulfilling my duties within a rigid framework. I had been awakened to a new purpose, one that demanded I take a stand against the very deceptions that had kept both my family and my community in their emotional chains. I was called to confront the fears that had stifled my voice, to advocate not just for justice in the courtroom, but for a deeper understanding of the truth that united us all in our shared humanity. This awareness of my calling ignited a fire within me that I could no longer ignore. I began to seek ways to share the revelations I had experienced, to help others see the light I had encountered. But I knew it would be perilous. Challenging the norms of my community and exposing the hidden agendas could lead to rejection and hostility. Yet, the urgency to awaken others from their slumber was too profound, too important. I felt a profound responsibility to not only challenge the status quo, but to actively engage in a quest to unveil the truth. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but deep inside, I felt a call to rise to the occasion, and now it was time to embrace that mission wholeheartedly. As I stood in the mosque for daily prayers, I felt an overwhelming sense of spiritual void wash over me. The rituals that had once filled me with a profound sense of purpose now felt hollow, echoing around me like empty shells. I was Ali, a 35-year-old judge, respected for my role in the community, and yet, beneath my outward composure, I was grappling with an unsettling truth. I was quietly questioning the very essence of my faith. Each prayer became a reminder of the disconnect I was experiencing, an internal struggle that kicked up the dust of doubt in my mind. In my quiet moments of reflection, I began to confront the weight of expectation that surrounded me. As a public defender, I upheld the law and the tenets of our faith, but at what cost? My mornings began to fill with heavy dreams. In these dreams, I'd find myself wandering through vast deserts, illuminated by a brilliant light that pierced the darkness. The sight was both enthralling and alarming, and I often woke with my heart racing, drenched in sweat. Each dream left me with a lingering feeling of urgency, like a message trying desperately to break through the noise of my daily life. It was during one of those sleepless nights that everything changed. I found myself unexpectedly immersed in a near-death experience. I had been feeling particularly overwhelmed, and the stresses of my role began to suffocate me. Suddenly, I felt myself slipping away, as if I were being drawn into a different realm of existence. When I opened my eyes, I was surrounded by light, and there stood Jesus, his presence radiating love and peace. "Ali," he said, speaking to me in a way that transcended language. In that moment, the burdens I carried faded away, and I felt an indescribable warmth enveloping my soul. In that sacred instant, Jesus unveiled the hidden truths of the world around me. I saw the spiritual war being waged, not just within my heart, but also in my society. The images flashed before me, illuminating the larger picture of manipulation and deception orchestrated by the elite. I felt the weight of their hidden agendas, controlling narratives that sowed division among us and created a cycle of suffering. Each revelation struck me like lightning, igniting a passion within me to reveal these truths to others caught in the web of false beliefs. As I returned to consciousness, the implications of what I had experienced gripped my heart with urgency. No longer could I sit idly by, adhering to the complacency that had defined my life for too long. I understood that my journey was not just about embracing my own awakening. It was about sharing that awakening with my community. Yet, the fear of backlash loomed heavily in my mind. Could I really confront the very traditions I had devoted my life to? The thought of being labeled a heretic sent shivers down my spine, but the truth I now carried demanded to be voiced. It was time to step into the light, to embrace the calling that Jesus had awakened within me, no matter the cost. The last thing I remember was the screeching of tires and the shattering of glass as the car veered off the road. In that instant, everything changed. I entered a void, a silence that enveloped me completely, and soon found myself in a surreal realm bathed in intense light. I had no sense of time or space. It was as though I was suspended between existence and oblivion. It was here that I experienced a near-death experience, something I could never have prepared for. Suddenly, I was in a divine tribunal, surrounded by a breathtaking radiance that filled my very being with warmth. I felt both insignificant and exalted in this presence, as if I were exactly where I was meant to be. Standing before me was Jesus, his figure emanating a sense of love and truth that I had never encountered. "Ali," he said, calling me by name, a sound that resonated deep within my soul. In that moment, the weight of my earthly concerns vanished. I sensed a profound connection that transcended all barriers, a meeting of kindred spirits across the boundaries of faith and culture. As Jesus spoke, revelations unfolded before me like a beautifully complex tapestry. He illuminated the hidden agendas that lay behind the religious and cultural structures I had held dear. I began to see how these institutions often serve to distract us from the essence of the divine, manipulating our beliefs to maintain control. These realizations were staggering in their clarity. I saw the lies woven into the fabric of our social constructs, the manipulation orchestrated by the elite to breed division and conflict among humanity. The spiritual war that raged was one not just of belief, but of the very hearts of men and women yearning for truth in a world steeped in deception. Each moment spent in this space became more urgent. Jesus shared with me the ramifications of failing to see beyond the surface, reminding me that the divisions we experience are the direct result of a larger scheme, where fear is weaponized against us, where wars, both physical and ideological, thrive on misunderstanding and hatred. The deeper truths he revealed filled me with a sense of responsibility. I realized that this awakening was not just for me. It was a collective call to others still trapped in the cycles of our misguided beliefs. When I awoke from the coma, the world looked different, as if I had donned a new set of lenses that allowed me to perceive the truth. The experience was vivid, the encounters palpable. I knew I was meant to take my experience back to the world, despite the risk of alienation from my family and community. The urgency surged through me like a tidal wave, compelling me to break my silence, to challenge the narratives that kept us divided and fearful. I felt driven to share the truth I had encountered, aware that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. But there was no turning back. The awakening I had experienced demanded action, and I was ready to face whatever lay ahead in my quest to liberate others from the chains of deception. When I awoke from that life-changing experience, the world felt foreign, almost surreal. The hospital room's harsh lights pierced through the haze of my recent revelations, but as I blinked away the remnants of my unconsciousness, the weight of reality settled in. The joy of coming back to life was quickly overshadowed by the panic of uncertainty.